Good evening and welcome. If you want clear explanations of what's really happening inside Washington, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our breakdowns of key hearings like this one.
Question.
I appreciate you being here today, Mr. Secretary. I want to ask you a few questions about DOGE and the role it's playing at Treasury. You came into office, I guess you were sworn in on the 27th, was it? You were confirmed by the Senate on the 27th? Is that about right?
28th.
28th? Okay. And then you started working at Treasury immediately after that? All right, and DOGE began working there as well with respect to the payment systems?
Two individuals from DOGE who were actually Treasury employees were on site.
Okay. And I believe you were approached by the highest ranking career official at Treasury, David Lebrick. Am I pronouncing his name correctly?
I believe it's Lebrick.
Lebrick, okay. What was the nature of that conversation? I assume this was about the DOGE issue, but tell me briefly what that conversation was about.
Well, that conversation was about a discussion of the payment system. And when I go back to what I didn't know, I think I walked in the office around 3 p.m., and I think he and I were having a conversation at 4:30, and
I got to ask for the short version.
Oh, no.
Okay.
But I will tell you that when we were talking about the tasks, that it was people like this individual who were hitting send on the payments. So, I've come to find out that he's part of the
Okay, I
problem.
apologize. I'll have to get that later from you.
Yep.
Feel free to send in substance of the discussion in a letter. But I guess what I was going to ask was, you just mentioned there were two people who were working with respect to DOGE at the time.
Yes, sir.
And Mark Elez was one of those?
I'm not sure.
Not sure? You're not familiar with that name?
I don't recall that name. I interviewed Tom Krause and personally recommended him to work at Treasury.
Okay. Well, Mr. Elez had worked at Mr. Musk's SpaceX company. And the Wall Street Journal issued a story, I think around February 7th, that talked about statements that Mr. Elez had made in the prior year. One was, you could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity. Another was that he wanted to normalize Indian hate. A third was, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. And another was, I just want a eugenic immigration policy. Is that too much to ask? This man resigned shortly after that article was published, but you don't recall him being there?
Congressman, I did not recall that individual's name, but that individual was terminated.
He was terminated, okay. Well, I appreciate that. Although it appears that he then later turned up that he was rehired, I guess, and that he's continuing.
Not by Treasury, sir.
Okay, but he was continuing to do work for DOGE, but in this instance, HHS and three other departments? You have no idea.
I didn't follow his career.
Okay. Well, you didn't catch J.D. Vance saying that he didn't think he should be terminated? Did you miss that too?
I don't recall that.
All right. Do you recall Mr. Trump saying that he should have a second chance?
I don't recall that.
No. Okay. And do you recall Mr. Musk saying he should be given a second chance as well?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I guess the main question too here is, what exactly was the vetting practice that you had in place before you brought on these two people and gave them access to the payment system, which is $6 trillion?
Well, sir, they did not have access to the payment system, or perhaps we have a different definition of access. They only had read-only abilities, and they were there for tech support to look at the payment system, the ERP system, just like any private enterprise.
Is this an individual that you would have brought on even in that capacity if you'd known that he'd made these statements prior to him becoming part of that team?
Congressman, that I think it's very difficult to monitor everyone's social media.
That's not what I asked.
before they're
If you
hired.
knew that he had made these statements, would you have brought him on in the capacity that he had at the Department of Treasury?
I think the Office of Personnel Management would have flagged that.
Would you have brought him on?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speculate.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Lalota, for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Good to be with you this morning, sir. I'd like to use my time to talk about taxes and trade. As head of Treasury, you advise the president on taxes and trade, sir?
Today's exchange comes from a tense and revealing moment in the Scott Bessent Treasury hearing, where lawmakers began pressing the Secretary on something most Americans had not heard much about yet, DOGE, and its role inside the Treasury Department's payment systems.
At first glance, the questions seem routine. Confirmation dates, start dates, who showed up at Treasury and when. But beneath the surface, this line of questioning is about power, access, and control over one of the most sensitive systems in the federal government, the system that moves money on behalf of the United States.
Secretary Bessent confirms he was officially sworn in on the 28th and began work immediately. Almost immediately after that, DOGE personnel were also present at Treasury. Not contractors, not outside observers, 2 individuals working on behalf of DOGE, who were also Treasury employees and who were physically on site with access to payment systems.
That detail matters, and if you're finding this helpful so far, subscribe to the channel because we break down these moments that often get lost in long hearings. The questioning then shifts to a critical figure, the highest-ranking career official at Treasury at the time, David Leck. Career officials are not political appointees. They are the institutional memory of an agency. When someone at that level raises concerns, Congress pays attention.
The lawmaker asked directly, "What was the nature of your conversation with him?" Secretary Bessent explains that the discussion took place on his very first day. He recalls arriving at the office around 3 p.m., and by about 4:30 p.m., he and Leck were already deep in conversation about the payment system.